Hi, this is Marty Lecklatter, Product Manager for HCL Leap, formerly known as Forms Experience Builder. This is a video on how to create applications with HCL Leap. We're going to start with the basics and then build from there, so you can watch as much or as little of this video as you want. Creating a new application can be as simple as clicking on New Application, visually designing your page or number of pages, and then clicking Save and Deploy. So let's take a look. I'm going to click New Application. I'm going to type in the title for the application, which is Product. This is going to be an app that I use to track products and pricing. You can see I've got my palette on the left, Canvas in the middle, and then I've got the application outline on the right. Notice that the cursor is in this particular spot in the canvas, and when I click on a widget, it pops it right into that spot. So the first field I'm going to put in here is called Product Name. So I simply just type that directly there. And I can come and set properties. Maybe I want this to be full width, so I can tell it to span the width of whatever the column is. And I can grab handles wherever these little boxes are, and I can resize things quite easily. You can also pick things up and move them around. You can drag widgets across multiple columns if you want to do that. You've also got a duplicate icon here, which I'm going to actually use this right now. I'm going to duplicate that and put that over here, and then we'll call this next field part number. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in the type of offering on this select one. And then for the select one, I need to put in the options. If I had these options conveniently in a spreadsheet, I can simply just copy and paste the range from the spreadsheet in here or from a comma delimited file. I don't, so I'll type these in, and the first option is going to be an SLA. The next one is going to be an install, and then the next option is going to be a product. And I'll make that a horizontal orientation as opposed to a vertical, and then I'll stretch this across. And then my final field in the form will be price, so I drag the number widget over and I type in a title of price. And I'm going to go to the options, and here for the number widget, I'm going to set this to integer as opposed to decimal. And let's say for one final item here, I'm going to drag an image widget. So let's put a picture up at the top of this. And I'm going to go to my library and let's pick this particular picture here. You can see it's a little bit big, so what I can do is resize that. I'll set the width, and what's nice is I only need to put in the width or the height, and it's going to maintain the aspect ratio for me. So I've created the application. I'm previewing it right here. If I click Save at this point, it's going to actually save that application definition. You can see the application at the top of my list here in the Manage Applications page. View responses in launch is grayed out because it's not an app yet. It's a design. If I deploy this, it's now going to create the app. So I say go ahead and start the deployment. And in a matter of seconds, I now have a working live application with URLs, which is presenting back to me not only for the form, but it created a page for viewing the data that I collect, and also some analysis on that data that I collect. In addition to that, it's creating some embed codes which I can use if I want to embed the application here, which I just created, into another web page. Let's go ahead and we'll launch this. And I'm going to put in a product name, and the first product name is going to be widget, and we'll give it a part number, and we'll say that's an SLA and it's got a certain price, and it tells me my data has been submitted, which is the default. You can change that landing page if you want. If I go to view responses, it's going to show me the record. Here you can see the data which I put in. It adds to every record that it collects meta information, tracking the ID, the stage, who created it, when was it created, when was it last updated, etc. I can customize this view. For instance, if I wanted to hide the metadata, I could do that. I can sort on different fields if I had thousands of fields and I wanted to zero in on a certain set of information. And also I created this summary page which goes and provides some visualizations. Now with one record out there, it's not terribly interesting, but you can imagine that if I had many different offerings and many different prices, I can kind of see an interesting view into my information. So with those three steps, there you have it. I've created this application. It's a live, ready to use working web application. The next part of this video is going to build off of the work that we've done so far to illustrate some important concepts, which are a Leap application can have multiple forms. Each form has its own database and view results page, and each form can have multiple pages. This can all be contained within one application. So let's take a look. On the Manage Application page, I'll go in and edit the application that we previously created. This brings me back to the design panel. I'm going to duplicate page 1, and we'll call this page 2, very creative title, and I'll give this form a more descriptive title. We'll call this Products. And since page 2 looks just like page 1, let's go ahead and we'll delete some of these widgets because we don't want to ask the same things all over again, but I do want this pretty picture at the top, which is why I duplicated the page. And I'll add some new fields. Let's go and add a multi-line. And let's call this description. We'll set the width to full, and you can see I can change the number of rows in that multi-line to display. And then we'll add an attachment over here. And we'll call this picture. Or maybe we'll put it in the product manual. How's that? Manual or picture of product. So now I have two pages in the form. So the question is, well, how do I get from one page to the other? Well, you would do that through page navigation. So what I can do is put a page navigation widget at the top of page 2 and put one at the top of page 1. And if I preview this, you can see that I can move between the pages quite easily. So this is a technique where you can create multiple pages and you can follow a page-by-page approach to asking questions. So now that I have two pages in the product form, let's add a second form for customers. I'm going to click the plus icon next to the main form that I have, and I'm going to type in customers. And by default I have a page for customers. One of the reasons why I like to put multiple forms in the same app is that I have a consistent set of resources which I can apply to all forms. So in this case I have the image which I've already defined, so I can pop that in over here. Same applies with styling, fonts, etc. It allows you to provide a consistent set of resources across all the aspects of your application. So I can start to build out customers the same way that I built out products. Just another note here is that you can pick up these pages and move them around. If I wanted page 2 before page 1, I could do that. We'll put that back, and then you could do the same with forms. If I wanted to pick up customers and actually move that above products, I could do that. So that gives you, some flexibility on how you want to organize your application. Next, we'll take a look at how you can import spreadsheet data into your application. Chances are you've been doing some things with spreadsheets, and now it's time to move them into Leap. To move spreadsheet data into my Leap application, I need to make sure that the ID for each field, which you can find on the Advanced tab, so this is a unique ID that every field is going to have. It can be whatever you want as long as it begins with F underscore. What I've done is I've put in descriptive names for the ID in Leap, and then I've duplicated those ID names over here in my Excel spreadsheet at the top of each column. So you can see F underscore part name, part number, etc. So in View Results, there's a button called Import Data. I can come over here, and I can now select that Excel spreadsheet that we were just looking at. Leap is going to look at the spreadsheet. It's going to recognize that there's fields that match, and it's going to import them. So I've just moved all my product records over, and then I can come over here and I can do the same with my customers. So this gives you a way to leverage the work that you've done with Excel and move into Leap. Now that your customer data has been moved over to Leap, you're going to want to maintain it there. So now it makes sense to introduce the concepts of workflow stages and access control. So let's go back into the application we created. Specifically, we'll take a look at the product form. I'm going to go over to stages, and under stages we see the default level of workflow that's included with an application. A start stage, which is when you're first filling out the form, and then an end stage. And the definition of an end stage is that you can't have any actions to change the data in the form, which is not applicable in our use case because we want to be able to maintain prices, product descriptions. We also have information on customers that's likely to change. These two stages may apply if you're doing something simple like a survey, but in our case we need to change them. So let's add a new stage. We're going to call this update. And when a record is first filled out in start, we're going to say that it goes into update, and then update, when updates are made, we're going to have that record stay in that stage. All right, so access works with stages, and you can see down here under the stage settings, the workflow stage settings for the product form, I now have the update stage. So if I look at the start stage for this form, the initiator, who is the person who's filling it out, so these are default roles that come with each application. That's good. But under update, I need to give somebody the ability to update the record. I'm logged in as the administrator. Let's give the record owner the ability to update this. Or better yet, what we could do is define a role. Maybe what we want to do is single out the product managers and say, let's give them access to this for update purposes. And you can explicitly define members to the product manager role, or you could look them up and dynamically assign people to the product manager role. But we now have that role and that privilege setting for the update stage under the product form. So we'll save this, and then we'll come over to the Manage tab, and we're going to deploy this. But what we're going to do is deploy this, and under the Advanced tab, we're going to say let's delete the records. Those records that we previously imported with Excel, the update stage didn't exist, so they were imported into the end stage. Well, let's back out of that. We'll delete the data. We'll go over to View Responses, and we see that there's no products here. I also deleted the customers. So let's re-import that data for the products. And you can see that that data is now in, and if I reveal the stage here, I'll change the filter, you can see it's all in the update stage. So what this means that if I want to come in here and change the price of this particular item, I can change that. Let's change that. It's on sale at 4. So that's been changed. And now I can see that that's 4. So I have this ability now to go back in and update the records. So that's workflow in Access. In the next section, we're going to take a look at service integration. The scenario here is a customer request for a quote. We have information on the customers. We have information on the products and pricing. Let's see how we can add a third app where Ann can develop a customer quote that consistently leverages the pricing and product information maintained by Joe, as well as the customer information maintained by Sally. As you can see here, I've started a third form in this application called Quote. And in this form, what I want to do is ask a question. So I'm going to use the drop down. And the question is going to be, who is the account? So I'll say select an account. or select a customer. And rather than typing in the names, what I want to do is I want to use a service. So in this particular case, I'm going to use Leap applications as a service, and the Leap application I want to look at is the current application. So you can see down below it's got the customers and products listed. So I'm going to go to the customer form and I'm going to search the data. So this is searching the customer form database. I could put some criteria in here as inputs for this service call, but since I want a full list of customers, I'm going to leave it blank. And then this is what I get back from the customer database. I've got the metadata information there, and you remember these fields that we created. So there's the account name and the customer number. Well, here's my drop down in the form that I just created, the quote form. So I'm going to say the saved value. Let's map the customer number to the saved value, and for the user to choose the customer, well, we'll give them the customer name. So you can see why we have a different option here for saved and displayed. You might want to map the name to both. That'd be fine as well. So I'm done with that. And at this point I can preview to see if this service call is working. And we see that it is. So it's pulling the list of customer names out. The next item I want to address with services is to get details on the selected customer. So when I select a customer, I want to know not only the account name, but the contact, the email, customer number, address, etc. So how do we do that? We'll go back to the customer drop-down, select the customer drop-down, and we'll go to the Events tab. And the event that we're interested in is the on-item change. So in other words, when a value changes, something selected, I can do something. In this particular case, one of the options is to call a service. And so I'm going to add another service configuration here, and I'm going to stick with current app because I'm after customers. And you can see down here I've got the customer search and retrieve. Before I use the search, now I'm going to use the retrieve. The way I remember the difference between search and retrieve will always return one record. Search potentially returns many records. So I want one record for the selected customer, and what I want to do is say the select an account is going to be mapped to the account number. Remember, I'm saving the customer number. And then the outputs, in this particular case, will parrot back the account name here, even though we have that already. The customer number down here, the customer contact there, the email over here. So you can see I'm just mapping these fields across. The city from the service over here to the state. And finally the zip code. We'll say OK. And now we'll preview this. So I've got my list of customers. And when I pick one, you can see all the details on the customer are being retrieved and populated into the details section of the form. So now that we have the services working with the select an account and the customer details, let's start to format the quote. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the text widget and throw it over here on the right. And we'll type in quote 4, and I'll put in a colon. And now I want to select an echo text item. So what I do is I go to the insert item, so you can see all the different fields in the form that I've defined so far. So the first one I want is the account. So if I put that in, and then I can say let's turn that into an H1 format. So this is a rich text widget. I can come over here, preview this, and if I select an account, you can see how this works. So it picks up the account name and then it populates it through the echo text. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new page in the quote application, and then I'm going to take the details that I get back from the service call. I'm going to put them on the new page. And the reason I'm doing that is really for cosmetics. I want to improve the UI of this application. I want to drop down where I can select the account, select the product, select the service details, and then just see the quote right here. I don't need to see all the details twice. I'm echoing them all back in the quote, so I'll just hide the detail fields back on this new page here. So I've gone ahead and continued to build this application. I've added some questions here for who the rep is, the email address. In addition to the select an account, I've got to select a product, select the installation level, select the service level. These are all populated in the same fashion that I did the select an account. I've got all the detail information being stored over here, so we never see that. And then I'm using echo text in the text widgets here. So this is the quote for, and then the details on the customer, and then the quote itself. You can see I'm using tables in the quote, and I've popped in the echo text variables using the insert item capability. I'm using some rules, so this section here with the quote is not shown till everything is answered. So my questions, when they're blank, I'm hiding the quote. So that gives it a little bit more of a nice UI. So let's go ahead and we'll preview this. So there the quote is hidden. I'm going to select the account, and then 2, select the install level and the SLA. I've got the values I need to fill out the quote, and you can see how this has formatted the quote document, if you will, for me. And it's picking up the rep name and email address and putting the name here. The last capability we're going to take a look at, which completes the picture, is workflow stages with notification. In our application scenario, the customer quote needs to be reviewed by services for an estimate on the installation date and the number of hours to install the product before it goes back to the rep, and then the rep okays it to go out to the customer. So we have a couple of questions, the installation date and the number of hours to install, and these questions only appear when it's in the stage services review. So if I click on services review and come down here, you can see that we're showing it. So that's an eye icon. If I click that, it would be hidden. We're going to show it in that stage. And I'm doing just the opposite with the questions that we ask in the start stage for the rep. So prepare the quote and the rep name. The services rep doesn't need to answer those. But if I go to the start stage, we see that these are shown. And this one is hidden. So you've got this ability to show and hide different parts of your form based on what stage it's in. You can also enable and disable different parts of your form based on the stage. And these could be complete sections, fields, or entire pages if you want. So the other part which is important here is notifications. Whenever a form is submitted to the next stage, there's typically a notification which alerts the actor to then pick up the form and add the information that is needed. We're also using notifications to actually communicate this or send this quote to the customer. So once it's customer ready, there's a button that's called send to customer, and that button sends an email. And if we look at the email, what we see here is the same rich text editor and the use of echo text that we have in the body of the form. So all of the items that are available in the form are available here. In fact, you can actually take the HTML source from one and paste it into the other, and it's got the echo text fields all built in, and they transfer the echo text tags in the HTML. That they all transfer, so it's an easy way to kind of cut and paste and rebuild this in the email section. Some other items which are important are the to field. So I'm sending it to myself, so I'm able to show it to you and test this. But there's also a carbon copy, blind carbon copy, and reply to, which is new in version 9 of the product. And here I'm replying back to, or giving the customer the option to reply back to the sales rep. So I'm picking up their email address and putting it right here. And you can see the subject. I'm using echo text, quote for, and then the customer name. So we'll go ahead and cancel out of this. And then if we go back to, I'm not going to save any of this. If we go back and we actually prepare a new quote. So it's picking up my name. We'll say this is for pyramid construction. We're going to select the 2000 kilowatt item here, and it's going to be an industrial level install, and it's going to be the Platinum SLA. That's up to $275. The installation can be done as early as, so we've got a blank here, and we'll take X hours to install. Well, that's where services comes in, so we'll send this off to services. So the confirmation here is that it has been sent to services. We go into view results to see the stage now for this record, pyramid construction. It's in service review. Services sees the questions that they need to answer, so they put in the installation date and the hours. They're able to then send this to the next stage, which is customer ready. The rep gets notified in customer ready. They're able to then pick it up, look at the changes. So I built an alert in here which highlights the contributions or the inputs from services. So it's July 26th and it's 4 hours to install. We see that down here, July 26th and 4 hours to install. We also see it over here. So the rep can say, okay, this is great. Let's send it to the customer. And if we take a look at this notification as it would go to the customer, you can see how it appears. So you get 726, 4 hours, 275. Even though we've covered quite a bit in this video, there's still many other capabilities in the product. A couple that I'd like to highlight. First, styles. You've got the ability to completely customize the look of your application, either through writing custom CSS or using the style editor. And then finally, we spend days on JavaScript and the robust eventing model in the application for extending functionality and building custom behaviors. Again, we only can fit so much into 30 minutes. We really hope you enjoyed this, and congratulations if you've made it this far in the video. If you have more questions, have other interests, please feel free to contact us at this URL below. Thank you.